I've been giving a lot of thought to this scripture passage because I think it speaks very loudly to the predicament of our times. Just think about this for a moment. Is there anything wrong with the seed? No, nothing wrong with the seed. Monsanto didn't make it, okay? What's the problem here? The problem is the soil. The soil's the problem. It's either too shallow or there are not enough nutrients in the soil to make the crop grow, or maybe some of the seed that gets scattered along the cement, and that goes nowhere at all. We're living in a time where our whole culture, our society, and even our church, I hate to say this, is living on very, very shallow soil. Very shallow. And not enough nutrients in that soil. To what? To grow holy people. To grow holy people. To grow patriotic people. To grow people with values. And this is where we are today. Now, it would be terribly wrong to point out a whole bunch of problems and then, of course, have no solutions for it. After all, the gospel is the good news, isn't it? It's not the bad news. And what we do need, though, is hope, Christian hope, that God is going to give us what we need to survive and bring us to the kingdom. But we also need what we call a road to get there. Now, a lot of people don't think we have it or are not paying any attention at all to what the problems are. But we do have a way to get there as soon as we recognize what the problems are. It's not going to be easy. But let me tell you where it begins. It begins, first of all, with the family life. And as I told you many times before, the family is the basic building block of society. It's that place where life comes to us, union of husband and wife, producing children, and it's the place where human beings are nurtured in love, in manners, in education, in an ability to survive the trials that life has to offer. Whether it be the children or husband and wife, the family is that vehicle by which we are able to achieve what we hope to achieve, what we're called to achieve in life. Although the family is under attack, as I said to you many times before, it is the vehicle that we must depend upon to make the soil deep and fertile so that human beings can grow into the people that God wants them to be. And this is going to be the same for our country. Family has to implant in their life as a family those things that are going to help the children grow into good citizens and to respect the values of this great nation of ours. How do we do this? That's why I said the key is the family. The family has to take responsibility, first of all, for the religious education of the children. Family. I am sorry to admit this, I am not happy with Catholic education. From the youngest years through college and university, I'm not happy with it. We have many young people who do not know the basics of the faith, and many young people who are confused as to what they learn in school and believe that it is Catholic. Unfortunately, once again, I must say, I read yesterday in the newspaper that Notre Dame University, great Catholic institution in our country, they've given a position on the faculty to Pete Buttigieg. And he is living in a sinful situation with another man, and he is radically pro-abortion. That's a Catholic university. What do we do? Again, this is family, it's parents. How many people here have a Bible in their home? We've talked about this before. You have a Bible in your home. You have to have a Bible. All right? You folks listening at home, you have to have a Bible. As a matter of fact, let's make this interactive because we have the camera on here and people can talk back to us on the live stream. So you can answer the questions. You have a Bible at home. Okay? Yes? All right. Now I'm going to give you a hard one. How many here have a Baltimore Catechism at home? Some of you do. Now listen, I'm nothing against the Catechism of the Catholic Church. It's an outstanding work, but it's too thick, it's too much for the average person. Baltimore Catechism, that big. And you know what you had to do with the Baltimore Catechism? You had to memorize it. It had the basics of the faith in there. Ask people, young people, even adults. They don't know the simplest things anymore. Get a Catechism of the Catholic faith. And you might say, oh, my kids are grown. No, they're not. You have children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, nieces, nephews. Give it to them. And tell their parents, tell them to memorize this. If you love your child, they'll memorize this catechism. Remember, why did God make me? To know him, love him, and serve him in this world? So that I could be happy with him in the next. See how many know that? That's why God made me. Simple, but they don't know it. Basic prayers. Basic prayers. It's in the Baltimore Catechism. Our Father, Hail Mary, glory be to the Father. Memorize them. I have people coming to confession. They don't even know the act of contrition. That's if they come to confession. A lot of them don't even bother with confession anymore. And of course, the church pays a lot of attention to the liturgy. You know, the liturgy is the high point in life where the church receives its sustenance. But liturgy without theology becomes rather empty. That's why we don't have a lot of people coming to church anymore. You can't just blame the coronavirus. People don't come, they do not understand. It is the job of the family to provide those materials. Don't expect the schools to do it. Don't. I've been around long enough to know what the score is. Okay. Now, what else can the family do to nurture the faith? I know that tons of people have Netflix in their house. What are we watching on Netflix? How about I make some suggestions and you get this on Netflix? Remember the 10 Commandments? Why not? Show the kids the 10 Commandments. Powerful movie. It'll get their attention. At least they can say they heard them once and may be impressed by Moses or Charlton Heston. They'll be impressed. Remember the movie The Greatest Story Ever Told? What about that? The gospel, right there, beautiful gospel story. Why not? Why not? Some of you might remember the telemovie by Zeffirelli, Jesus of Nazareth. Remember that? Why not? Let the kids watch it. They'll be impressed with it. A lot better than playing that stupid Nintendo and all of these games that bring them nothing but tension and isolation from one another. Beautiful movie, too. Telemovie, Peter and Paul. Wow. What terrific apostles they were. Peter and Paul, watch that movie. Another one. How many remember the Cardinal? Remember the movie The Cardinal? Go look it up. Get that movie, The Cardinal. And when you talk about racial justice, go look what the church did down south during the 50s when there was no racial justice down south, when blacks were being persecuted. See what the church did. How about on the waterfront with Marlon Brando? That's social justice. Go look what the church did when workers were being abused and used by the thugs and the unions and the big corporations on the waterfront. Pat O'Brien, what an actor. I'll give you another one. What about Yankee Doodle Dandy? Jimmy Cagney. What a beautiful movie, all the best that America had to offer. How proud. He went into the office of President Roosevelt and was so honored to speak to the president. What horrible things we say today about the man that holds the office. It's angry, it's hostile, it's mean, disrespectful. I don't care who's in that office. The president always deserves respect. Yankee Doodle Dandy. Remember that closing scene over there, and he's marching with the soldiers. That's when Americans were proud to be Americans. What we did for the rest of the world, for Europe and for Asia. And Cagney marched with the troops in the streets as he left the White House. Some of you might remember the movie The Longest Day, what our troops went through in Europe. What about The Longest Day? America's military has a long and proud history. We don't talk about that anymore, do we? I'll give you one last one. One last one. The Sound of Music. A beautiful movie. And I had a pastor once, his name was Monsignor Cavallucci. And Monsignor Cavallucci watched that movie every day. Every day. He thought the VCR was the greatest invention ever made. And I said to him one day, I said, Monsignor, I said, how come you watch the same movie over and over again? And he said to me, because it contains everything that is beautiful. Let the kids see The Sound of Music, probably one of the best movies ever made. What about some of the important things needed to give nutrients to our great American soil, where the seeds are our children? They have to read the great American documents. You have to read those documents. They don't even know what they are anymore. They go to school. They go get virtually educated now. And they have to rely on what some teacher says they are, if they even mention them. They're not read. And they're certainly not memorized. Let me tell you, when I was in school way back when, some things you had to memorize. I remember memorizing the Gettysburg Address. I can't do it now, but I sure did it then. I had to memorize the preamble to the Declaration of Independence. It still brings tears to my eyes. Those are the things that America is founded upon. But ask a child if they even heard of them, and the answer is probably not, or they have some skewed idea that in some way those documents were racist. And they're not. They're powerful and they're beautiful. Have we achieved everything that they hope to achieve? Not yet. But we got to keep striving. They're documents that call us to be better than we are. Children should come in contact with the Federalist Papers, not little ones, high school students, college students. Federalist Papers are important to understand our Constitution. I remember reading the Federalist Papers when Justice Scalia came to visit the law school, and he recommended to every student, read the Federalist Papers. And I made sure that I read it too. We must read the Bill of Rights. We have to know what our rights are, not what people tell us they're supposed to be, but what they are. Never have anyone try to take away those 10 First Amendments to the Constitution. They guarantee us our freedom. And there are many attacks being made on free speech, on religion, on assembly. Know your rights in the Constitution and in the Bill of Rights. We should read the Emancipation Proclamation of President Lincoln. It talks about freeing the slaves. It's important that our young people know what the great emancipator Lincoln said and did, instead of even trying to attack probably one of the greatest presidents this country has ever had, Abraham Lincoln. I advise you to provide young people, and maybe yourselves, maybe for the first time, read President Eisenhower's farewell address to the nation. What a marvelous document, when he talked about the military-industrial complex that we have to be careful for. And he was a man of the military, and Eisenhower knew what some of the dangers were. A must is President Kennedy's inaugural address. When he was inaugurated and he gave that address, I could remember sitting in the living room. I was 10 years old with my father. My father was an immigrant. He came from Italy. And he cried listening to John Kennedy. Ask not what your country could do for you, ask what you could do for your country. How many people are saying that now? Everybody's on the take. Gimme, gimme, gimme. I deserve this, I deserve that. I want this, I want that. Listen to Kennedy. Wow. Ask what you could do for your country, not what your countries can do for you. That's American. That's American. Read Martin Luther King, I Have a Dream. My God in heaven, that he spoke those marvelous words, I have a dream, when every person will be judged not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. That's America. That's America. Not some of the terrible things that are being said today about this great country. Recommend to you Ronald Reagan. Wonderful speech he gave. It was 1975, A Time for Choosing. Read Ronald Reagan. And lastly, I am going to recommend to you, and of course you're going to have some people that are going to get mad. Go ahead. Get mad. Read Donald Trump's speech at the March for Life, defending human life. I waited a long time to hear a president of the United States defend human life. And whether you like him or not, quite honestly, in most cases, the words that people leave behind are bigger than the person. And that's true of Washington and Jefferson and Lincoln. The words that President Trump spoke at the March for Life are bigger than he is, whether you like him or not. I think I have made myself clear. But let me go further. I mean, you're not rushing any place these days. You're all afraid of coronavirus. And some of you I could see out in your living room now. You're having your second cup of coffee, enjoying me, I'm sure. What about good literature? What about good literature? Do people read the classics anymore? Let me tell you something. Over the last 20 years, I don't read that garbage anymore. I read the good stuff, the classics. It's worth reading because it not only tells us about Western civilization, but a lot of it is American literature and tells us what is best about America, what's great about America. So let me give you some ideas. Get these for the kids, in their birthday, Christmas. Let them read it. Let them read it, right? The Adventures of Mark Twain. What a sense of America you get from Mark Twain. You don't get anything better than that. Wow. Read The Grapes of Wrath by John Steinbeck. You talk about the coronavirus, talk about the Dust Bowl in the Midwest when Steinbeck wrote The Grapes of Wrath. Read The Scarlet Letter. Very important, talking about sin and redemption and mercy. Talk about mercy. Oh, this mercy is a new thing now, isn't it? It's not new. Christianity always talked about mercy. Wonderful book, just was made into a movie, Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. A treasure. When I first picked it up, I said, I don't want to read about a bunch of little girls. I opened that book, there's religion in there. There's family life, there's dedication, there's truth. Read it, it's a classic. Read Uncle Tom's Cabin. You'll see the horror of slavery, and you'll see why Lincoln had to do what he did. It's a classic. Read The Last of the Mohegans by James Fenimore Cooper. Read about the Indians, the Native Americans, if you will. Read about what it was like during those early days of colonization here in our great country. Read The Great Gatsby. Read The Great Gatsby. Tell you about the Roaring '20s. Periods of time where our young people don't even know about anymore. They think it all began when they were born with the iPhone in their hand. We have a long and rich history that we have to understand in order to be good citizens, in order to appreciate this country. Read To Kill a Mockingbird, Harper Lee. Read about social justice. It's always been part of the American psyche. Read Walt Whitman, Leaves of Grass. He was in love with America. He was in love with the beauty of this country. He lived during the time of the Civil War. He served in the infirmaries in Washington. Read Leaves of Grass. And I'm going to close with one last suggestion, very close to my heart. A tree grows in Brooklyn. Now you ask why. Well, it should be obvious, because there's a lot of trees that grow in Brooklyn, all right? This is what America is all about. We cannot learn what it is to be American without learning about our past, about learning about the great movies, the great literature, all of those things that teach us not just about history, but teach us about values and teach us about morality, teach us to live with one another, and to teach us what the ideals are that we strive, we're not there yet, that we strive to attain. And so today we talked about, maybe for some of you too long, you're on your third cup of coffee now, we talked about those ways that we can make the soil deep, make the soil rich. It's in our hands. Don't wait for the schools to do it. Don't wait for the government to do it. And unfortunately, don't wait, for your religious education programs to do it. It's the family that has to get this going. Now, I gave you all of these suggestions and instructions. As I said, we're rather interactive now. We're live streaming. And I know that when you live stream, you can send messages, right? Type them in, and it comes out on there, and you could watch what people say. Folks, if you have suggestions as to what we should watch, what we should read, please type them in. Type them in, and other people can then benefit from it. And you might even want to give what we call an annotated bibliography. That means you could tell us what the book is, what the movie is, and then you could just write like a couple of sentences about what it's all about and the value that you found and you'd like to share with other people in this movie or in this book. All right. Let's continue with the liturgy, and let's make that soil grow rich and deep and luxuriant, and that way we can grow a good crop of citizens for America and for the kingdom of God. God love you.